like a given. You just make the folders every time. Every new project we have, you're going to make your folder collection just like we did for every other assignment, okay? Even inside of After Effects, you could, once you start your project, you could then make all the folders inside here to make everything nice and neat. As you get further and further on, you'll see how we just keep adding and adding and adding more stuff to that pile of things that we're doing, okay? Also, just like the previous assignments, YouTube is a great resource to just kind of get ideas for different things you want to do, just to see what other people have out there. So these are, there's different kinds of lower thirds. So typically for like news stuff, you would have lots of different information. So you have like a headline, you have your description, here's breaking news, and then more description kind of stuff, like so much information on there. If you watch like any kind of like CNBC or MSNBC, they usually have like the stock ticker going along the bottom, plus they have what's going on, plus they have coming up at 8 o'clock, plus they have some other stuff on this side. It's basically just like a big advertisement for the rest of the day. Okay, so there's lots of different things that are inside here, and there's a bunch of different ways that we can kind of go through and create these. And you'll see how they're using basically like this tool here is what they're showing is for creating different looks of different things. So adding basically the same style but different colors to that mix. Okay. There's also ones that are just more like simplified. Those other ones at. These ones here. Okay, so these are more similar to what we would have seen for like our nameplate, just very simple type stuff. And he's showing how you could change them and whatever else. But the idea is that we're going to keep it on that bottom third just as like a little title thing. Again, these are used like all over the place, not just news, but literally like every show you watch, uh, whatever. They usually have some sort of indicator. You have a documentary video you've created where you're interviewing people. Typically, you would have a flash at the bottom to show their name. And just like your nameplate, you want to make it as simple as possible to update all that stuff. Okay. So here's a couple of tools that we're going to be playing with. So I'm just going to make a new comp. I'm going to stick with 30-second duration for now. Everything else is the same, 960, 540, 30. And I'm going to go down here. So we haven't looked at this really yet. So this is title safe, and then we also have a grid on here. So if I go to my title and action safe, this is basically just to prevent, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, especially it happened on more older TVs, but sometimes you would see text on the screen and like half the text is getting cut off, okay, because it wasn't always like a locked in size of the TV screen, so it would get cut off. So a way to prevent that is there's this bar here. This bar is basically your title safe. So any text you have, you typically want to keep it inside that area. Just in case a TV decides to resize your picture, you don't want it to cut off any of the text because usually the text is like the important stuff. The outer box here is your action safe. So that means that if you had something very specific like an action you want to make sure people saw, it should be within that realm. And then this little area here is stuff that may or may not be seen on every single TV that you show it on, okay? But this bar and that bar should be pretty close. So when we do our text, we try to keep it mostly inside here. Now you'll see like the stock ticker things, those are on the bottom. If you start squishing everything upwards, then you really have this like big area. So usually that stock ticker stuff does end up like in this bottom area, but our important stuff is like our name and our title. Those are the two things we typically want to have like up here in this area. Okay. The other thing that we have is a grid. So if you look, this is the grid, and if we go to our preferences for our display, oops, our grid, there it is. You can change how divided the grid is. So it's grid lines every 80 pixels and then 4 subdivisions. So if I reduce the amount of subdivisions and hit OK, you'll see that we actually have something that is a bit more readable. If we go to our preferences, grids, and guides again, and we set this to, this is 540 pixels going up, right? That's how many pixels go that way. So if we set this to like 270, not 270, 540, Let's open up 7 calculators. That's what we do it. There you go, 180. We set this to like 180. Then we basically have divided this into thirds. So now we have an idea of where our lower thirds is by separating it like that. Okay. Now it's not to say that anything can't pop up above this, maybe a little bit, but you really don't want to go too far above that, because what happens is you're most likely watching a show and you don't want the show to be interrupted by your lower third most of the time. Okay. So as we create our lower thirds, we're going to basically try to keep it in this area here. Okay. And then our text will be in this area here. Oops, that area there. Okay. So just to create something simple like this first one, okay, so how do you think I did the lines coming in? Any thoughts? Mm-hmm. What was that? Trim paths, right. So we've done that before. We drew out some paths, and then we use a trim path just to animate the lines coming in. Now here's something that's different that we haven't done yet. Look at my name coming in. See how each individual letter is now coming in individually? It's not just like all the letters moving at once. We're going to learn a new thing called animators with text. Okay, so we've used animators for trim path. We're going to use an animator with a text that will allow us to do stuff like that. All right, so I'm just going to create a, maybe I am, come on. Oh, there you go. Make sure I'm on the right tool. I'm just going to create a line here, and the line's just going to shoot out like this, and then I'll have the text kind of come out of the line. Okay, so my text is going to be up here and down there. So my first step in doing anything is just to conceptualize it, just to kind of get the idea of what the end result is going to look like, and then work backwards from there. You don't want to go into this trying to build one asset at a time, and then when you get to the end of it, it's like too crowded, or it's too plain, or you have other stuff going on. So let me just give this a fill color, or a stroke color. Let me get rid of my fill. Oops, thicker. There we go. Okay, so I'm just laying this out here. I'm going to go to my text tool, bless you, and I'll put my name, Sean Sarcona. I'm going to duplicate my name, scoot it down here. Awesome, dude. Okay. Typically, whatever is your main word, like the title of it, is going to be bigger, right? It's going to be bold, it's going to be bigger, and then our subtitle is going to be smaller and probably not bold, okay? Also, you want to choose your fonts carefully. Stuff that's on screen is obviously a little bit different reading than something that's in a book, so you have to make sure that it's readable. You wouldn't want to do, just to exaggerate this, Baskerville, I think? No, Baskerville. I don't know why every other Adobe program will show you what the fonts look like, but for some reason Adobe is, this is not showing me them. Franklin Gothic Heavy. Well, that's fine too. Where's that script you want? Hey. There we go. Perfect. That's what I was looking for. All right. So something like this can be very difficult to read, especially if you have a lot of text or if you have a big title. You don't want stuff like that. So try to stick with something that is definitely more readable than something like that. Now, what's cool about this is you can also just click right on the text and just use your arrows to kind of go through them. So here's another one that would be horrible to read, is this one. It's like way too condensed. And for something like a TV screen, like a 70-inch TV screen, no big deal. But keep in mind that more people are looking at stuff on their phones now, so you really have to make sure that your text and everything is readable on multiple levels. There's the other one I was looking for, that one. Or that one. There we go. I'll just use this Microsoft Sans Serif. Perfect. Okay, so take that. Some of these do not come with a bold, so that you have to click the bold here if you want it. Just keep in mind that sometimes the fake bold looks horrible, and you have to actually find a good font with a regular one, or with a regular font. And then you don't really want to mix fonts too much. So this is Microsoft Sans Serif. Sans. There we go. So I'm going to shrink this down. Awesome dude. Okay, and I'm just kind of lining this up and then just kind of playing with the look of this. So maybe my stroke's a little bit too big. 8. All right, I'm going to grab everything and just kind of scoot it down some. Oops, I said everything. There we go. I think I'll pull that back just a bit. All right, that's good enough, okay? So now I have at least a concept of what I want to do, okay? So I'm going to go with my shape layer, and I'm going to hit the arrow. I'm going to go to my contents. I'm going to hit add, and I'm going to add my trim path, okay? Nothing different so far than what we've done already. Going to reset this to 0, hit it on, go up to like 28, crank it up. Don't let these take too long. You don't want your lower third to take like 20 seconds to come on screen. I've seen some that take 20 seconds, and it's just like way too long. It's like too much stuff happening. It should just be within 5 seconds, all your text is out, and then when it's done, 5 seconds, it's all gone. Okay, so here's my line coming out. That's way too slow. Obviously, we need to do our easy ease to this. We need to go into here. Maybe the other way. There we go. Good. Okay. So now I want my name to then come out of that area. So if we were going to get my name to just lower down and hide, how would we get to lower down and hide? Someone said it? Track mat, right? So we would create a box. So I'll do my name up here. I'm going to put it right on the line. And I'm going to put this box like way down here like this. Okay. So there's my track mat. So I'm going to rename this track mat. Okay. And because I'm using a track mat, it has to be right above my name. So I'm going to go to my toggle switches. I'm going to say track mat. Use that as an alpha channel. Right? And so now it's gone. So if I was just to animate my name, then it would pop in there. Actually, I want this to be alpha inverted. There we go. Now if I pull this down, come on. There we go. Thank you. That makes sense. Get rid of the stroke. Put a fill on this. I just thought I was going crazy for a second. Now let's put this down. There it goes. Now it like dips into that. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to have each individual letter come down, not just like the whole word. Okay. And what's cool about this is as that line is going across, that's when I can have the letters kind of popping up too. So it's kind of like in sync with the letters going across. So under my Sarcona here, under animate, here is a whole bunch of stuff for just text. So you wouldn't get this for a shape, you would just get this for text. So you would get some of these for shapes. I'm going to go to position and say position. And I'm just squishing this up just so you guys can see it better. So what we get is this animator here, and the animator comes with two main areas that we need to play with. One of them is this range selector. So this is basically like which letters do you want this to happen to, okay? So right now it's happening from 0 to 100, meaning that it's happening across all the letters, okay? 0 is the start of my word, 100 is at the end of my word. And then the position is where it's moving. right now this position here that's under the animator is 0, 0. So it's not moving anywhere. So what I want to do is move it down in the Y direction. So I'm going to go to the second number, which is the Y, and just move it until it goes into the box. Okay? So now it's inside the box. Now if I go here to this end, what should happen is as I take this 100% on the end and I pull it down, it's going to take those letters and start to shoot the letters upward. Okay, so it shoots them up individually. So that starts off at the end and works its way to the front. If I do the start side here, now it'll do it the other way. Okay, and then there's an offset too. So you could do something like, let's say this is at 20. I could do the offset, and it'll go like both ways. So if I needed it to go this way or that way, I could use offset for that. Okay. Typically, you don't need offset and the start and end. So I'm going to reset this to 0 so that it's hidden. I'm going to go back to my lettering here. I'm going to set a keyframe for the start right when that orange line hits where I want it to start coming up. Okay. Then I'm going to go to the end of that, which is about there, and I'm going to set this to 100. Okay, so now we'll see what that looks like. So now it looks like my letters are kind of appearing as that line goes across. Okay. Now if we go a little bit slower, you can actually see them coming up. Okay. Now it only happens in a few frames, so we're not actually seeing like a huge transition of the letters like slowly coming up, which is what we obviously don't want. But what's cool about that is once we click on our motion blur for these two pieces, we click on the motion blur here, we'll get some really nice blurring effects. Okay, cool. And then we can do the same exact thing to Awesome Dude. So I'm going to take my same track mat and just duplicate it and pull it up here. Take my Awesome Dude, set this to be an alpha, and then go back to the Awesome Dude, open up the arrow, animate, position, raise it up so it's hidden. There we go. And then I'm just going to use the same stuff, right? So it starts here. Go to my range selector, hit the start keyframe, go to where it's at the end. There we go. Okay, now just to slow it down, just so you can see it, I'm just going to take all my keyframes and just like stretch them out. Okay, this is just so you can see it. You don't want it to go this slow. So now this is off time. Let's move you over here. Yeah, better. There. So that's like way too slow for anything to happen. Just like, okay. Let's put that back to where it was. This is actually good timing coming out, and then we can see the stuff. Cool. Now what's cool about this too is that once we have this set up, we can still move the stuff around. That animator's position is different than the regular position. This is basically like the position of each letter. So if I needed to, let's say, take this and nudge it, I can still nudge it and it's not going to affect my animation. Okay, if I wanted my name to be like right on that line, I can just scoot it down until it's right on the line. If I wanted this to be, you know, touching the line for some reason, I could do that too. The only thing that I have to be aware of is I still have that track mat box that's cutting stuff off. So I may need to adjust the position of that too. Okay, pretty cool. All right, so that's just basic stuff that you'll be using throughout each of these. Every single one of these things that I did has the text doing that. Now this one is using, instead of it position, it's actually using opacity. Okay, so instead of the letters like appearing, like moving up, it's actually fading them in one at a time. So let's do that one too. So I'm just going to rename this one line. Okay. So I'm just going to make a new comp. Oops, I should actually finish this one first before I move on to the next one. Okay, so it goes there, perfect. You want it to hang out for like 3 seconds at the most. So 1, 2, 3, about 5 seconds. And then you want to reverse everything so that it goes away, okay? Just like our page transitions, we want to basically leave the page blank every time we go to a new one, so we're not stacking these on top of each other. So all I have to do is just copy these keyframes, paste them, and then just do the same thing we did before, which was time reverse. For this one, copy these keyframes, paste them, time reverse, grab these keyframes, paste them, time reverse. So now it should go away. Everything's gone, okay? So now I can just take this and set my end of my work area, trim my comp to here, and everything's cool. All right, so now I'll go to my new one. This one, I'm going to use the pen tool again to draw. And this one I'll do maybe just a different shape. So I'm going to click here, I'm going to hold shift, I'm going to click there, I'm still holding shift, and I'm clicking here, still holding shift, clicking there, and then so I click that. Okay, so it kind of goes like around it. Get rid of the fill. Let's take the stroke color up. Like that. All right, so I could tweak that further, but whatever. If I need to adjust the points, I use my pen tool, and I can click on the points and move them up if I need to, or I can switch to my selection tool and grab all the points and move them down. I think that looks better that way. Okay, so I'm going to have this right on just like we did a second ago, and then once it's filled in, then this little bar is going to go across and just like write the words. Okay, kind of like a typewriter or something. And let's actually do this. This might be kind of neat. Do that. I'll shrink this down to like 6 or 4. 4 is good. Okay, so that way I have a spot for my title, and I have a spot for this. Okay, so I'll have basically a bar go across here to write this, and then a bar go across this way to write that one. That's cool. All right, so text, put my text here. And you will use your name for yours. Do not use my name for yours. You can choose different fonts, try different things out just to see, you know, what's going to work, what you like. Again, fonts like this don't work very good, or that. HP simplified. Perfect. Maybe I'll take the kerning up a little bit. There we go. Okay. Then I'll go to my text again. Drop some text in here. You guys can't see what I'm writing. Boom. Why are you laughing? All right. Subliminal messages. That's what I'm trying to do here. All right. So there we go. Perfect. Make sure those are aligned. Yes, awesome. Okay. So same thing that I did before. I'm going to go to my add here. I'm going to add my trim path. I think a rounded corners on this might look good too. So you're just adding the rounded corners. It just rounds these off, which looks extra nice. Also, if I don't want these things to be square, remember that I can go to the shape. Go to my stroke and go to my butt cap and change it to a round cap. And that will change my caps to rounded instead of butty. Like that. All right. Okay, so back to the trim path. Go here. Start this here, come up. That's way too long. Maybe 2 seconds. And depending on how big your shape is, obviously you may want more stuff to happen or less stuff to happen, or longer time or less time. Okay, so you really got to play with it to see. Like, that's kind of boring, so let's just push this in some. And I think I have the speed maybe a little bit too quick, so I'm just going to slow it down some. There we go. It's a little bit more elegant. All right, so now once it's here, then I want to have just a bar go across, like line. It's going to be originally lined up with the orange, and it's just going to like come straight across where my name is, and just write my name out. So I'm just going to make a box here, like that. I guess I can just do a line. Let's do a line. The good thing about doing it as a single line is that I can always change the width of that later too. Okay, so now I'm just going to animate this just moving straight across. So I go to my regular position. I wait till this is completed, right? So this has to be completed first. I click position, I go up a little bit, and then I just move this across. Sometimes it's hard to select these to move them, so I'll usually just use that. There we go. So I'll have it do this. I'll have it go here, and then I'll have it just like flip down and then do that side. Okay, I did that on the other one. So I'm going to go to my rotate. I'm going to set a keyframe. I'm also going to go to scale and set a keyframe. I'm going to scoot up a little bit. And when I rotate this, it's going to go crazy. Yep, see, it went crazy. All right, so let's undo our keyframes real quick. I just have to set up something before I do any of that, which is my anchor point. My anchor point's way up here. It needs to be right in that line. This is why you want to test things out and plan things before you get too far into it. Okay, so right about there is where my anchor point should be so that it rotates like that. Perfect. Okay. So real quick, reset my position, go up a little bit, scoot that over here. Perfect. And then set my rotate and scale keyframes, go up a little bit, rotate it down. And that's why I set the scale keyframe, because I know that the size of it is going to be a little bit different, and I want to also shrink it down just in the Y direction. There we go. So now it comes out and goes across and down. Okay. So now how do I get it to not be there at the beginning? Yep. So I just trim this right to my first keyframe. That way we don't even see it. Comes in, goes across, right? As long as those two things are the same color, we'll never notice it, okay? Now I could also put this below that object in case it was a different color. I wanted it to come out of there, you know, that would work too. So now I go back here and then I just reset my position. Position keyframe starter, scoot up a little bit, and then bring it back to there. Now once it's here, because I use the rounded corners, I need to also kind of fake this and maybe just scale it in a little bit right at the end. Or I can just cut it. I'll just cut it. Okay. And if these things distract you, you can always turn your grid off and your title safe off once you have those areas outlined. Yep, that works. Okay. So now it's just a matter of maybe just retiming this. Maybe it just goes a little bit too slow. And then easy easies too, that will help. Yep, that's good. Okay. You don't always need to go into the graph editor and tweak the curves to make it faster or slower, but at least doing an easy ease really helps get some good motion in there. Okay, cool. So now I can take my text and make my text appear inside this. So if I go to my animator for the text, instead of going to position, which is what I did last time, I can go to opacity. And it's going to work nearly the same way. So I go to my range selector, and you'll see I have a 0 to 100 and an offset, just like before. And then for opacity, we just have a value. So this value is basically the 100 that's here, is like, this is where it's starting at. We want to actually start at 0 and go off and go on. So we reset this to 0, and it goes away. Then when we animate the start and the end, you'll see the letters come back on. There we go. Come on, get to 0. So now we'll see the letters come back on. So now it's just a matter of timing it with that. So I hit the start right at the beginning. I go to where it's at the end of my text, put this up to 100. One more frame over. There we go. And then check it out. Right? And then if I just take these two and make them easy ease, see, we're still a little bit off here. Sometimes you're just off in how it does. So that's where I'll use the graph editor just to kind of tweak that. So if I speed it up at the beginning, or slow it down at the beginning, then it'll have time to catch up. There we go. Maybe a little bit faster right at the end. There we go. And it's never going to be like 100% perfect. You just try to do your best to get it so it doesn't look weird. There we go. Okay, because no one's going frame by frame. We just have to make it look like it's writing it out. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing on the bottom. Now I could actually take my animator and just copy it, go to my bottom text and just paste it. And it'll not only paste the animator, but it will also paste the keyframes. Okay, now for this one, I don't want it to go that way. I don't want it to start at the left side and go to the right like I did for the first word. I want it to start at the right and move its way to the left. So if I remove these keyframes from start, go to end and paste the keyframes. Come on. No, I deleted them from start. I never copied them. Let me grab the keyframes and copy. Turn this off. Click on end and paste it. There we go. All I have to do now is just reverse them because they're reversed keyframes. Okay, and then it's just a matter of lining it up. So I go to here. That should be where the first keyframe is. I go to the end. There. That's where my last keyframe should be. And then I can check it out and see. Pretty close. All right. Now we check it out. Awesome. Okay. Now, when you do something like this, you have to also consider how do you want it to then disappear, right? So how do you get this animation that we have to disappear? So coming on is one thing, but going off is a different thing. So you may want it to animate differently. You may want to animate the same. Don't complicate it. It's basically meant to be just like extra information. It's not the main information. So some people will do like crazy things, like aliens fly over and they shoot it away and it disappears. Okay, that's like too much stuff. So you got to think of something simple to do. So just to keep this one simple, I'm going to use the exact same animation that I just did. So if I go to my shape layer here, that's the little line that writes it across. What if it wrote it backwards, right? What if it just did this? Right, that would be an easy way to get it to go away. Okay, so if I go to my shape layer and duplicate it, and like I said, we want this to be on for about 3 seconds at the most. So if we go to about 620-ish, that's about 3 seconds. And then I put this animation here, you'll see that it goes the exact same way. So I'm going to reverse these keyframes. So here's a quick way to do that. If I go to my switches and modes, nope. We'll see if this works. I don't think that'll work. It did work. So if I click on this little button here on the far bottom, you can barely see it on the projector. It's right there. Okay. You click on that, it'll bring up these stretching things. And basically, I can take my animation and make it a -100. Basically, just take that animation you have and totally reverse the entire layer. Okay, so now if I zoom in on this, it's hard to see, but you can see there's a line right here on the bottom. That means that that layer is actually now going backwards. Okay, so now that animation will just play backwards. So it goes like this, and then it goes like that. And then all we have to do for these things is just take our keyframes, copy them, paste them here, and then obviously reverse them so that they go in the right order. There you go. And then just tweak it. So obviously we're just a little bit off right there. It goes up. And then we go to this one, copy our keyframes, we paste them, we reverse them. That was right on, awesome. Okay, now once the text is gone, I don't need it anymore, so I should trim these layers also. So trim this layer, go to the start of this one, trim that layer, go to my other text, trim this, go to the end of it, trim that. Okay, and then my last layer is just my shape layer. It just has to go away. So after it's all done, then I can reverse these, and then it'll go away. So let's turn this off. Let's turn this off. Let's turn motion blur on. Let's see what it looks like. There we go. Okay. Now it looked like for a second there, yep, see the B is like faded here? Sometimes this will happen with your keyframes because if we look closely, my last keyframe here for the best is 0. My first keyframe here is 0, but for some reason it's kind of like moving in the middle, okay? So if I go to this keyframe here and I right click on it and I say toggle hold, what that will do is it'll make sure, maybe it's the other one. There we go, it was the first one. It'll make sure that the whatever keyframe is there will hold until we get to the next keyframe, okay? Because what's happening is it's trying to create a nice smooth transition from one to the other, and so in doing that, it basically creates this arch, which gives us a little bit of movement. Okay. So that's important stuff to pay attention to. All right, so there we go, there's my text. This is the end of it. I'll set my end of my work area. I will trim my comp. Call this first writer, second writer, outline shape. Okay, so now everything's organized nice and neat. Cool. All right, so that one works. Now what's cool about this too is that at any point, if we decided we needed to change one of the words, depending on what news station you're at, this may not say best. Okay. So worst teacher in the world, see? And everything still works. All of our animation still works. If we went with a bigger name like, you know, most terriblest teacher in the world, and that obviously pushed it into the biggest, or into a bigger area, that would change our design some, but the idea is that we're not going with anything that radically different from the original. Okay? So this is going to be your first step, is just get comfortable with doing these like little things. Okay? We're going to have a couple days on doing these types of things. Eventually, I will show, where are you at? There it is. I'll show how to do something more like this, where we actually have like a spinning globe, and then we have these other shapes inside here. You can probably figure out the shapes, obviously, because we've kind of gone through that anyway. But the globe is a little bit different. But then you see that the rings actually like go around the globe, right there. It's kind of like 3D, but it's not really 3D. It's After Effects. Okay, so we'll go into something more like this next class. And then I'll also show how we can go into Photoshop and create some of our designs, or go into Illustrator and create some of our designs, and then bring those into After Effects to use on top of our stuff. If you look at some of those things from here, a lot of these ones that he shows are pretty simple, what he's showing. But some of the more advanced ones, I don't know if this is an advanced one. No, we're just showing it now. Some of the more advanced lower thirds actually have a bit more design to them. And After Effects can do some of that stuff, but usually it's a lot easier, like this kind of thing, where you have this like line pattern, you have the gradient in there, you have some shading, pictures, stuff like that is actually easier to do inside of Photoshop or Illustrator, and then bring it into After Effects and animate all those things separately. Okay, so for today, just play around with doing these simple, not these simple ones, doing these more simple ones. And then next class, we'll get into something that's a bit more complex. Okay.